The wind howled through the jagged cracks of the crumbling Graymoor penitentiary, its icy breath seeping into the bones of anyone brave or foolish enough to approach. Jason Miller, host of the wildly popular YouTube channel Urban Legends Live, stood before the towering iron gates. Snowflakes swirled around him, their delicate dance stark against the brooding darkness of the prison. Jason's confidence radiated as he addressed the camera in his hand, the bright light casting sharp shadows across his face. His breath fogged in the freezing air, but his grin was steady. Welcome to our New Year's Eve special, folks. Tonight, we're diving headfirst into Graymoor Penitentiary, the last home of the infamous Night Stalker. They say he loved New Year's Eve. So much so, his victims always disappeared on this night. Fitting, isn't it? Let's see if he's still hanging around. The prison loomed behind him, its stone walls streaked with grime and graffiti. Its windows, long shattered, stared blankly like the eyes of something ancient and blind. A heavy chain hung loosely on the gates, rusted into irrelevance. With a dramatic push, Jason swung open the gates, their metallic screech echoing through the night. Not exactly Fort Knox, he quipped, his tone light, though the weight of the place seemed to press down on him. Inside, the main hall stretched into shadowed obscurity. The camera's light swept across the debris-strewn floor, revealing remnants of a bygone era. Overturned benches, shattered glass, and walls scrawled with ominous warnings. The most prominent read, "Turn back." Jason chuckled, trying to mask the faint unease creeping into his voice. Looks like someone decided to roll out the red carpet for us. Creepy messages? Check. Abandoned building? Check. Now, all we need is a ghost to crash our party. As he moved deeper into the prison, the air grew colder, unnaturally so. Every step echoed, the sound swallowed too quickly by the oppressive silence. His camera light jittered slightly, the stream briefly pixelating before stabilizing. Jason didn't notice, but his viewers did. The live chat was alive with activity. Haunted Hannah. Guys, did you see that? The wall behind him glitched. Paranormal Pete. Why does it feel like something's following him already? Shadow Watcher. This isn't a joke, Jason. Be careful. Jason continued, seemingly oblivious to the growing tension in his audience. His footsteps crunched on broken glass as he entered what once might have been a common area. The ceiling tiles sagged, and frost clung to the edges of metal beams. Fun fact, he said, his voice bouncing off the empty walls. This place shut down in the 80s after the Night Stalker was executed. They say his cell was untouched for years. Rumor has it, anyone who stayed too long in his block started acting strange. But hey, that's probably just good OL prison legend, right? The sound of clanging metal reverberated faintly in the distance. Jason froze mid-step, the camera swinging toward the source. "Did you hear that?" he asked, though no one was there to answer. The noise stopped as quickly as it started. Jason forced a grin and turned back to the camera. Probably the wind. Or rats. Big rats. His laugh came too quickly, ringing hollow in the oppressive atmosphere. Unseen by him, the stream glitched again. This time, a shadow briefly flickered at the edge of the frame, vanishing before Jason turned. In the chat, the warnings grew frantic. Spooky Sam. There's someone behind you. Dead man walking. Bro, get out. Shadow Watcher. This isn't just a story. Leave. Now. Jason, still unaware of his viewer's alarm, pushed on. The light from his camera barely pierced the heavy gloom as he approached a metal door marked Cell Block B. With a deep breath, he grasped the handle. "All right, folks," he said, his voice steady but his hand trembling. "This is where the Night Stalker spent his final days. Let's see if he left us any surprises." The door groaned as it swung open, revealing a long, dark corridor. The air within was heavier, colder, carrying a faint metallic tang that set Jason's teeth on edge. Somewhere deep inside, something shifted, just a faint rustle, almost too quiet to notice. Jason hesitated for the first time, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. But then he smiled again, pushing through his unease. Midnight's coming. Let's see if Richie's home. As he stepped into the corridor, the screen flickered once more, distorting into static before snapping back to clarity. The warning etched on the wall behind him now read, "Too late." The cold in cell block B was sharper, almost physical. Jason's breath puffed visibly in the beam of his camera light as he stepped into the corridor. Rows of rusted cell doors lined the walls, their bars crusted with decades of decay. Some hung ajar, as if whatever was once inside had long since escaped. Jason's voice echoed through the tight space. "Okay, folks, this is it, the infamous cell block B. If ghosts are real, this is where they'll be hanging out. And if they're not, well, I'll make sure to give you a great show anyway." He chuckled, the sound unnervingly loud in the oppressive silence. The live chat continued to explode with activity. Haunted Hannah. Why is it so quiet? Even abandoned places shouldn't be this dead. Shadow Watcher. Something's watching him. I swear I saw a shadow in the last frame. Paranormal Pete. That's not just a shadow. Zoom in, dude. Jason scanned the camera across the block, his tone light but tinged with nervous energy. "Man, this place is a real fixer-upper. Anybody in the chat want to chip in for a renovation fund?" "No. Thought so." As he spoke, a faint metallic clang echoed from somewhere deeper within the block. Jason froze mid-step, the camera shaking slightly in his hands. He turned toward the sound, his forced grin faltering. "Okay, maybe the wind has some competition tonight." He walked slowly, the camera's beam bouncing slightly as he advanced. The noise came again, closer this time, a soft scrape like something dragging across the concrete floor. Jason paused, shining the light toward the end of the hall. Nothing. He let out a shaky laugh. Guess Richie's not much of a talker. Maybe he's saving his big entrance for midnight. The camera caught a flicker of movement in the corner of the frame, a shadow slipping into one of the cells. The chat exploded. "Dead man walking. Something just went into the cell on the left." Haunted Hannah. Jason, stop. "Get out of there." Shadow Watcher. "This isn't funny anymore. Leave." Jason, oblivious to the warnings, approached the shadowed cell. The metal door creaked slightly as he nudged it open with his foot. Inside, the air felt heavier, colder. The camera revealed nothing but an empty cell, rusted bed frame, scattered debris, and a faded chalk tally etched into the back wall. Jason leaned closer, brushing the wall lightly with his hand. Well, he muttered. "Looks like our boy Richie was keeping track of something. Days? Victims? Guess we'll never know." Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the block. Jason spun around, his camera capturing the hallway behind him. One of the cell doors down the corridor was now slammed shut. His voice was tight as he tried to maintain his composure. "Okay, that's new. Anyone else get the feeling we're not alone anymore?" The chat went wild. Paranormal Pete. That door wasn't closed before. "I swear." Haunted Hannah. "He knows you're there, Jason. Get out." Shadow Watcher. The air looks wrong around him, like it's bending. Jason hesitated, staring down the corridor, his earlier bravado fading. The camera light flickered briefly, the feed glitching as static rippled across the screen. A faint voice crackled through the distortion. "Get out." Jason froze, the blood draining from his face. Did you guys hear that? Tell me I'm not the only one who heard that." The chat confirmed it. "Dead man walking. We all heard it. It said get out." Paranormal Pete. "Bro, don't wait for an encore. Leave." Shadow Watcher. "You're out of time. Run." Jason took a deep breath, forcing a shaky laugh. All right. Let's not jump to conclusions. Could have been interference, or maybe one of you jokers hacked my stream. But his attempt at humor fell flat as the corridor plunged into complete darkness. His camera light flickered violently before cutting out entirely. Jason's panicked voice came through the static. Okay, lights. Let's come back on. Anytime now." The feed remained dark, save for faint flashes of static. The scraping sound returned, louder this time, and closer. Jason fumbled with his flashlight, his breath quick and shallow. Finally, the light clicked back on, illuminating the corridor ahead. For a moment, it appeared empty. Then, slowly, one of the cell doors creaked open. Jason's voice was barely above a whisper. I think I'm not alone anymore." The screen froze momentarily, the final frame showing what appeared to be a shadowy figure standing just inside the open cell door. The part ended abruptly, leaving the viewers in agonizing suspense. Jason's heartbeat thundered in his ears as he stared down the dark corridor. The shadowy figure from the cell door was gone, leaving him questioning his own senses. He took a deep breath, forcing a grin back onto his face. Well, that was something he said, his voice echoing slightly. Guess Graymoor's got a few tricks up its sleeve after all. He checked his watch, 10:45 p.m. Still over an hour until midnight. Determined to keep his audience entertained, he moved deeper into the prison, entering what appeared to be the administrative wing. The hallway was lined with offices, their doors hanging ajar. Papers littered the floor, and filing cabinets stood like silent sentinels. Let's see if we can dig up any of the warden's juicy secrets, Jason quipped, stepping into one of the larger offices. Dust coated every surface, and the air smelled of mildew. A large desk sat against the far wall, its chair toppled over. As he panned the camera around the room, the live chat buzzed. Haunted Hannah. Did anyone else see that shadow move behind the desk? Paranormal Pete. There's definitely something there. Shadow Watcher. Jason, be careful. You're not alone. Oblivious to their concerns, Jason rifled through the papers on the desk. Most were too faded to read, but one file caught his eye. The name Richard Gaines was scrawled across the tab. Well, look at this, he said, holding the file up to the camera. A little light reading on our friend, the Night Stalker. He opened the file, revealing yellowed pages filled with handwritten notes and newspaper clippings. As he skimmed the contents, a particular line stood out. Subject exhibits extreme psychosis. Claims to hear voices warning him of impending doom on New Year's Eve. Jason frowned. Looks like Richie might have been a few cards short of a full deck. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from the hallway. He jumped, nearly dropping the file. What was that? He leaned out of the office doorway, shining his light down the corridor. Hello? Anyone there? Silence. The chat exploded. Dead man walking. Dude, get out of there? Haunted Hannah. Something is messing with you. Shadow Watcher. This is a warning. You need to leave now. Jason laughed nervously. All right, guys, if this is one of you trying to prank me, congrats, you got me. He stepped back into the hallway, deciding to return to the main area of the prison. As he walked, his camera began to glitch again, the image warping and distorting. Unseen by Jason, faint words appeared on the walls in the camera's view. He's here. The viewers erupted. Paranormal Pete. Did you see that on the wall? Haunted Hannah. It said he's here. Shadow Watcher. Jason, you are in danger. He felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. Pulling it out, he saw a notification from an unknown number. Time is running out. Very funny, he muttered. Whoever's texting me, you're really committing to the bit. His phone buzzed again. 11 p.m. Leave before midnight. A chill ran down his spine. He checked the time. It was indeed 11 p.m. The realization that these messages were aligning with the time unsettled him. All right, maybe it's time to wrap this up, he said into the camera, attempting to sound casual. Don't want to keep you all up past your bedtimes. As he headed toward the exit, the lights flickered ominously. The main hall stretched before him, but something was different. The graffiti on the walls had changed again. The words now read, "No escape." Jason's eyes widened. Okay, that's new. He quickened his pace, but no matter how far he walked, the entrance seemed to remain the same distance away. Panic began to set in. What's going on? He whispered. He turned around, aiming the camera behind him. The hallway looked identical in both directions. The chat was frantic. Dead man walking. You're going in circles. Haunted Hannah. This isn't possible. Shadow Watcher. He's trapping you. You need to find another way. Jason's breathing grew labored. All right, folks, I think something's seriously wrong here. He turned into a side corridor, hoping it would lead him back to the entrance. The walls here were lined with old inmate photos, their faces scratched out or defaced. As he moved past them, the camera picked up subtle movements in the pictures. The scratched-out faces seemed to turn and follow his progress. The viewers were horrified. Paranormal Pete. Those pictures are moving. Haunted Hannah. I can't watch this. Shadow Watcher. Jason listened to the voices. They can help you. Just then, a soft, rhythmic tapping echoed from ahead. Jason paused, shining his light down the corridor. The tapping grew louder, morphing into footsteps. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice trembling. A figure emerged from the shadows. A man in a prison uniform, his face obscured by darkness. He stood motionless, blocking Jason's path. "Sir, this area is off limits," Jason stammered, grasping for authority. The figure tilted his head, and a raspy voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." Jason stepped back. This isn't funny anymore. He turned to run the other way, but the corridor behind him had changed. The walls closed in, and doors that weren't there before now lined the hall. Desperate, he tried the nearest door. It opened into a small room, a dead end. The whispers returned, surrounding him. "Get out, before it's too late." "How?" he shouted. "Tell me how to get out." The whispers intensified, overlapping until they became a cacophony of urgent pleas. Suddenly, his phone buzzed again. The message read, "Find the light." "Find the light," he repeated. "What does that mean?" The camera's light flickered, then steadied, casting a beam onto a loose panel in the wall. Hope sparked within him. He pried the panel open, revealing a narrow passage. "I'm getting out of here," he declared, squeezing into the space. The passage was cramped, forcing him to crouch as he moved forward. The air was stale, but it seemed to lead upward. He emerged into what looked like the prison chapel. Broken pews littered the floor, and a large stained glass window stood at the far end, moonlight filtering through the cracked panes. Relief washed over him. "I remember this place. The exit is just beyond here." As he made his way across the chapel, the floorboards creaked ominously. Halfway through, the wood gave way beneath him with a splintering crash. Jason plunged into darkness, landing hard on a stone floor below. Pain shot through his ankle as he tried to stand. The camera lay a few feet away, miraculously still functioning. As he reached for it, a shadow fell over the lens. He looked up to see the faint outline of a figure looming above him. The whispers returned, now clearer than ever. "He knows you're here. You must leave before midnight." Jason's voice shook. "Who are you? What's happening?" The figure extended a translucent hand, pointing toward a doorway bathed in faint light. "Go," it whispered, "before he finds you." Grimacing through the pain, Jason grabbed the camera and limped toward the doorway. The whispers faded behind him. He emerged into the courtyard, the night air sharp and cold. Stars glittered overhead, and the prison walls loomed around him. Checking his watch, he saw it was 11:45 p.m. 15 minutes, he muttered. "I can make it." He headed toward the main gate, which stood ominously at the far end of the courtyard. Jason limped across the icy courtyard, the towering walls of Graymoor Penitentiary closing in around him. His breath came in ragged bursts, visible in the frigid air. Every step sent sharp pain radiating from his injured ankle, but he pressed on, clutching the camera tightly. The gate was just ahead, its rusted bars faintly visible in the dim moonlight. Freedom seemed almost tangible, but the weight of unseen eyes bore down on him, urging him to move faster. Behind him, the whispers returned, faint and insistent. "Turn back. You'll never make it," Jason muttered through clenched teeth. "Shut up, shut up, shut up." The camera feed glitched again, the screen distorting into static before snapping back. The live chat was frantic. "Haunted Hannah. Run, Jason. Don't stop. Paranormal Pete. There's something behind you. I saw it in the last frame. Shadow Watcher. It's already too late. He's coming." Jason glanced over his shoulder, his light trembling as it illuminated the empty courtyard. Nothing moved, but the oppressive feeling of being watched was unshakable. As he reached the gate, he grabbed the handle and pulled. It didn't budge. "Come on," he shouted, yanking at the bars with all his strength. The gate groaned but held firm, its rusted mechanism frozen solid. The camera caught a flicker of movement behind him, a shadow darting across the courtyard. Jason spun around, but the space was empty. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out with shaking hands, the screen glowing with a new message from the unknown number. "The gate won't save you. Find another way." Jason screamed in frustration, his voice echoing off the prison walls. "What do you want from me?" The only reply was a low, rumbling laugh that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Suddenly, the camera light flickered and died, plunging him into near-total darkness. Jason fumbled with it, desperate to get it working again. The live chat became a blur of frantic messages. "Dead man walking. We can't see anything. Haunted Hannah. Jason, get out of there. Shadow Watcher. He's right behind you." Jason froze. The laugh returned, louder this time, and a voice whispered in his ear, "Tick-tock, tick-tock." Whirling around, he swung the camera wildly, its lights sputtering back to life. The beam landed on the center of the courtyard, where a figure now stood. The man was dressed in a tattered prison uniform, his face obscured by shadow. In his hand, he held a pocket watch, its polished surface gleaming in the moonlight. The sound of its ticking was impossibly loud. Jason's voice cracked as he whispered, Who are you?" The figure tilted its head, the pocket watch swinging in rhythm with the ticks. "Midnight is almost here," it rasped. "Will you join them?" Jason stumbled backward, his injured ankle buckling beneath him. He hit the ground hard, the camera skidding across the icy surface. As he scrambled to retrieve it, the figure stepped closer, each footfall echoing like a drumbeat. Desperate, Jason crawled toward a side passage leading back into the prison. He hesitated at the threshold, his mind racing. Going back inside felt like madness, but staying in the courtyard with the figure felt worse. The pocket watch's ticking grew louder, reverberating in his skull. Jason clutched his head, tears streaming down his face. "Leave me alone!" The chat exploded. "Paranormal Pete. Why is he going back inside?" "No! Haunted Hannah. Don't go back in, Jason!" "Shadow Watcher. The courtyard isn't safe." He has no choice. Summoning the last of his courage, Jason dove into the passage, slamming the heavy metal door behind him. The ticking abruptly stopped, leaving only the sound of his ragged breathing. He propped himself against the wall, clutching his ankle and trying to catch his breath. His camera picked up the narrow hallway ahead, its walls smeared with streaks of rust. Or was it blood? Jason's phone buzzed again. The message read, "You can't enter the chapel. You're running out of time." The chapel, Jason muttered. He remembered the stained glass window and the faint light it cast. It was the last place that felt remotely safe. Pushing himself to his feet, he began limping toward the staircase at the end of the hall. Each step was agonizing, his injured ankle throbbing with every movement. The whispers started again, louder this time, overlapping in a chaotic chorus. "You won't make it. He's waiting for you. Midnight is here." Jason ignored them, focusing on the stairs ahead. As he climbed, the lights flickered violently, casting eerie shadows that seemed to reach for him. At the top of the stairs, the chapel door stood ajar. Jason pushed through, collapsing onto the cold stone floor. The stained glass window loomed above him, its fractured light spilling across the room. The whispers fell silent. Jason pulled out his phone, checking the time. 11:59 p.m. He stared at the screen, his breathing shallow. "One more minute," he whispered. "Just one more minute, and I'm done." The room seemed to hold its breath, the air heavy with anticipation. Then the ticking returned. Jason's head snapped toward the sound. The figure stood in the doorway, the pocket watch dangling from his hand. "Time's up," the man said, stepping into the chapel. Jason froze as the figure entered the chapel, the faint light from the fractured stained glass window casting eerie patterns on the walls. The man's prison uniform hung loosely on his gaunt frame, and his shadow stretched unnaturally across the floor. In his hand, the pocket watch ticked louder and louder, each click echoing like a gunshot. "Who are you?" Jason croaked, his voice breaking. The figure tilted his head, the motion inhumanly slow. "You already know," the raspy voice replied. Jason shook his head violently. "No, this isn't real. You're just a trick, some kind of... His words faltered as the figure stepped closer, the watch ticking in perfect rhythm with Jason's pounding heart. The live chat exploded in panic. Haunted Hannah. Jason run? Paranormal Pete. Why is he still there? Shadow Watcher. The chapel won't protect him if he stays. The figure raised the pocket watch, holding it at eye level. The hands trembled, inching toward midnight. You've seen it, haven't you? The truth hiding in the cracks. You were warned, and still you came. Jason's camera, lying discarded on the floor, glitched violently, the feed flickering between static and distorted images. For a brief moment, the viewers caught a horrifying glimpse. Behind Jason, the faint outlines of shadowy faces pressed against the stained glass window, their hollow eyes staring inside. Jason stumbled backward, his foot catching on the edge of a broken pew. He fell hard, clutching his injured ankle and gasping in pain. "I don't know what you're talking about," he shouted. The figure's face remained obscured in shadow, but his tone dripped with disdain. "Of course you don't. None of you ever do. But when the clock strikes 12, Jason glanced at his phone. 11 hours, 59 minutes, and 45 seconds. "No," he whispered, crawling backward. "Stay away from me." The figure raised a hand, pointing toward the stained glass window. The light shining through it dimmed, as if swallowed by some unseen force. The shadowy faces pressed harder, cracks spiderwebbing across the glass. The live chat filled with desperate pleas. "Haunted Hannah. Jason, it's midnight. Get out of there. Paranormal Pete. The window's about to break. Shadow Watcher. You're the next one. It's too late now." The figure tilted his head again, the motion jerky and wrong. "You've always been the next one. From the moment you stepped inside, the clock began counting down." The final seconds ticked by. Jason screamed, "No, I'm not like them. I didn't do anything." The pocket watch struck midnight. The stained glass window shattered with a deafening crash, shards of colored glass raining down like deadly confetti. A gust of icy wind surged into the chapel, carrying with it a chorus of wails. Dozens of voices, all crying out in agony. Jason shielded his face, crawling toward the corner of the room. The camera captured the chaos, glitching furiously as the shadows poured into the chapel like a living tide. They swirled around the figure, merging into his form and making him grow larger, darker, more monstrous. The viewers could only watch in horror. Haunted Hannah. What is that thing? Dead man walking. Jason, get out. Shadow Watcher. He's not escaping. None of them ever do. The towering shadow loomed over Jason, the pocket watch now swinging like a pendulum. It slowed, each swing accompanied by a heavy, resonant boom. Jason's phone buzzed one final time. He looked down at the screen, tears streaming down his face. The message read, "It's over." "No." Jason whispered, "Please no." The shadow descended, engulfing him completely. The camera feed glitched one last time, the static giving way to a frame drenched in darkness. For a brief moment, a single word scrawled in blood appeared on the wall behind the shadow. "Yours." The stream abruptly cut to black. The live stream had gone dark, the screen now a black void with the occasional flicker of static. The chat remained active, filled with panic and confusion. "Haunted Hannah? Jason? Are you there? Paranormal Pete. Someone call the cops. Dead man walking. That wasn't a joke. What just happened? Shadow Watcher. It's done. He's gone." For several minutes, viewers stared at the empty feed, hoping it would flicker back to life. Then, suddenly, the camera sparked to life again. The angle was different, as if the device had been knocked sideways. The screen now displayed the chapel floor, the lens cracked and slightly obscured by dirt. In the background, the faint sound of dragging echoed through the room. Slowly, the camera refocused, revealing a smear of something dark and wet streaked across the floor, blood still fresh. The dragging sound grew louder, accompanied by faint whispers. The viewers couldn't tell if they were real or a trick of the damaged audio. "Haunted Hannah. Oh my God, there's blood." Paranormal Pete. "What's that sound? It's getting closer." Shadow Watcher. "It's not over. Watch carefully." The whispers intensified, overlapping in a chaotic symphony of voices. The dragging stopped abruptly, and the camera feed glitched, the static growing more violent. Then a shadow passed over the lens. It lingered for a moment, humanoid but grotesquely distorted, its edges flickering like static. There was no face, only a void where features should have been. The viewers could feel its presence through the screen, a cold, suffocating dread. The shadow knelt, and a single pale hand reached toward the camera. The chat exploded. Haunted Hannah. Don't touch it. Paranormal Pete. What is that thing? Shadow Watcher. It's already too late. He's claimed. The screen cut to black again. This time it stayed that way for a long, agonizing moment. Then a new image flickered into view. The camera now pointed at Jason's face, his features pale and frozen in an expression of sheer terror. His eyes stared unblinking into the lens, empty and lifeless. Blood streaked his face, and faint scratches marred his neck, as if he had clawed at something unseen. Jason's voice, distorted and hollow, crackled through the audio. I told you, I was fine. The chat erupted into chaos. Haunted Hannah. No? Jason, what happened to you? Paranormal Pete. This isn't him. It's something else? Dead man walking. Turn it off. Turn it off. Jason's body twitched unnaturally, his head tilting to one side. You stayed with me. That's all I needed. The image flickered again, and when it returned, the background had changed. Jason now stood in the courtyard, the shattered stained glass window behind him. The pocket watch dangled from his hand, its face smeared with blood. You'll see me again, he said, his tone cold and detached. Soon. The feed dissolved in a static one final time, accompanied by a low, menacing laugh. The livestream officially ended. The livestream's abrupt end left the viewers reeling. Online forums, social media, and message boards buzzed with speculation about Jason's fate. Clips from the stream spread like wildfire, dissected frame by amateur sleuths and paranormal enthusiasts alike. On Reddit, a thread titled, What Happened to Jason Miller? Reached thousands of comments within hours. Haunted Hannah. I was watching live. It wasn't a stunt. There's no way he faked that. Paranormal Pete. Did you guys see the pocket watch in his hand at the end? That wasn't Jason. Something took him. Conspiracy King. The government will cover this up. Just watch. Graymoor isn't a normal prison. Shadow Watcher. You shouldn't be looking into this. He's already claimed. Within 24 hours, the video was pulled from YouTube. Official statements labeled the stream as a hoax, citing pre-planned effects and Jason's questionable practices to generate views. However, those who had seen it live swore it was no fabrication. Several viewers claimed strange occurrences after watching the stream. Phones buzzing with unknown numbers, shadows flickering in their peripheral vision, and vivid nightmares of the pocket watch ticking endlessly. One user posted chilling evidence, a screenshot of a message they received at 12 a.m., the same time the stream ended. The text read, "Time's up. I'll see you soon." Despite official dismissals, some viewers took it upon themselves to investigate Graymoor Prison. A small group of locals attempted to access the site, but found it sealed off by law enforcement. Ongoing structural evaluations was the explanation given, but rumors swirled that something or someone was being kept inside. In a dimly lit room, a man sat at a cluttered desk, his face hidden by shadows. The faint hum of a computer filled the space as he scrolled through Jason's archived footage. The screen showed the final moments of the live stream, the shadowy figure looming behind Jason in the chapel. The man paused the video, zooming in on the distorted figure. His hand hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly. "It wasn't a hoax," he muttered. "It never was." The camera panned to the wall behind him, covered in photos, newspaper clippings, and maps. At the center of the chaotic collage was a mugshot of Richard Gaines, the Night Stalker. Pinned beneath the photo was a single phrase, scrawled in red ink. "Midnight is a doorway." Elsewhere, Jason's wife, Emma, sat on the edge of their bed, staring at her phone. Tears streaked her face as she replayed a voicemail from Jason left earlier that night. "Hey babe," his voice said, cheerful and confident. "Just wanted to let you know I'm doing the Graymoor stream tonight. It's going to be huge. I'll finally hit 1,000,000 subs. Don't wait up, though. Love you and the kids. Emma clutched the phone to her chest, sobbing quietly. She had tried to call him a dozen times since the stream ended, but the number only rang endlessly or disconnected with static. Her young daughter walked into the room, clutching a teddy bear. "Mommy, who's the man in the hallway?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. "What man, sweetie?" "The tall one," the girl said, her voice small. "He said Daddy's coming home soon." The ripple effects of Jason's disappearance begin to spread, drawing others into the mystery of Graymoor. The boundaries between the living and the supernatural blur as the Night Stalker's influence grows. By the second day after the live stream, Jason Miller's disappearance was a full-blown media sensation. News outlets picked up the story, some calling it a tragic accident, others a publicity stunt gone wrong. Despite the growing buzz, no one could ignore the chilling details captured during the broadcast. Detective Sarah Hayes, a seasoned investigator with the local police department, was assigned to the case. Sitting at her desk, she scrolled through the archive footage on a secure laptop, her brow furrowed. The footage froze on Jason's final moments in the chapel, his wide, terrified eyes locked on something just off camera. Hayes hit rewind, pausing at the point where the shadowy figure emerged in the background. "What the hell is this?" she muttered, leaning closer to the screen. A junior officer entered her office, holding a slim file. "Detective Hayes, we've got the initial forensics report from the prison. Thought you want to see this." She opened the folder, her expression darkening with each page. No footprints, no blood, nothing to suggest Jason even made it out of there. "And what's this?" She pointed to a photograph. The officer hesitated. "That's the chapel floor. It's weird." The photo showed faint scorch marks forming a circular pattern. At the center, a single word was etched into the stone. "Welcome." Hayes exhaled sharply. "This doesn't add up. If it's a stunt, it's damn elaborate. And if it's not..." She trailed off, closing the folder. Meanwhile, a group of Jason's most dedicated fans banded together to uncover the truth. Calling themselves the Midnight Watchers, they pooled resources and scoured every piece of information they could find about Graymoor Penitentiary. A user named Shadow Watcher, one of the most active participants in Jason's livestream, shared a startling discovery on their private forum. "Graymoor isn't just an abandoned prison," they wrote. "It's a threshold. I found an article about the Night Stalker's execution. The warden claimed Richard Gaines spent his final hours carving strange symbols into the walls of his cell. When asked what they meant, Gaines said, 'Midnight is the doorway, and I'll be the key.' The post included grainy images of the carvings. The symbols were angular and chaotic, seeming to writhe even in the still photo. One of the group members replied, "Paranormal Pete. This explains the ticking sound in the stream. It wasn't just a watch. It was part of whatever he unlocked. Haunted Hannah. If the doorway opened, where does it lead? And what happens to Jason?" Shadow Watcher. Jason wasn't the first to disappear there, and he won't be the last. Scene shift. The return to Graymoor. Detective Hayes wasn't one to leave questions unanswered. Armed with a flashlight and a police-issued body camera, she entered Graymoor Penitentiary alone that evening. The place reeked of decay and cold, the air heavy with an unnatural silence. "HQ, this is Hayes," she said into her radio. "I'm inside Graymoor. Starting my walkthrough now. Over." The static-laced reply was faint. "Copy that, Detective. Be careful in there. Over." As she moved through the corridors, her flashlight caught glimpses of Jason's path. Graffiti that had appeared during his dream, the shattered stained glass window in the chapel, and the strange scorch marks on the floor. Hayes crouched, running her fingers over the marks. "What were you doing here, Gaines?" she muttered. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed from the far end of the hallway. It was soft at first, then unmistakable, the rhythmic ticking of a pocket watch. She stood quickly, drawing her weapon. "Who's there?" The ticking grew louder, coming from all directions at once. Hayes' radio crackled, a distorted voice whispering through the static. "Time's up." The chapel door swung shut behind her with a resounding boom. Hayes turned, heart pounding, as the temperature plummeted. Her breath fogged in the air as shadows began to writhe along the walls, converging toward the center of the room. Her body camera captured the moment the shadows formed a single towering figure, its face obscured by a swirling void. In one hand, it held a familiar pocket watch, its ticking deafening in the enclosed space. "Detective Hayes," the figure rasped, its voice both deep and hollow. "You shouldn't have come here." The camera glitched violently, the feed cutting in and out. The last thing it captured was Hayes stepping backward, her flashlight trembling as the shadow reached toward her. The body camera feed went dark. The morning after Detective Hayes disappeared, her body camera was found on the steps of Graymoor Penitentiary. The device was intact, yet the footage ended abruptly in a static-laced blur. Authorities sealed off the area, officially citing dangerous structural conditions, but whispers spread that Hayes had joined the growing list of Graymoor's victims. Meanwhile, the Midnight Watchers, Jason's most fervent fans, pored over the footage Hayes had captured, shared anonymously on their forum. The final moments of the detective's investigation were chilling. The figure holding the pocket watch had spoken her name. How could it know her? What was it? One user, Shadow Watcher, posted their theory. Graymoor isn't just haunted, it's a trap. The Night Stalker didn't die. He became something else. The pocket watch isn't just a keepsake. It's the prison's heartbeat, keeping time until the next victim arrives. Midnight isn't the end. It's the beginning. Others were skeptical, but Shadow Watcher doubled down, sharing more details from the prison's dark history. Every New Year's Eve, since Gaines's execution, someone disappears here. Midnight isn't just a symbolic hour. It's when Graymoor comes alive. Determined to uncover the truth, the Midnight Watchers planned their own investigation. Shadow Watcher, revealed to be a tech-savvy young woman named Lila, volunteered to lead the mission. Equipped with infrared cameras, motion sensors, and recording devices, she intended to enter Graymoor on New Year's Eve, precisely 1 year after Jason's livestream. Her livestream, titled Unfinished Business at Graymoor, began at 9 p.m. Thousands of viewers tuned in, captivated by the idea of witnessing the continuation of Jason's story. "All right, everyone," Lila said, her voice steady despite the fear glinting in her eyes. "We all saw what happened last year. Tonight, we're going to figure out what really went down." Her camera illuminated the decaying prison as she moved cautiously through the main hall. The graffiti Jason had shown in his stream was still visible, but new messages seemed to have appeared. "Time's running out, and not much longer." The chat lit up with nervous comments. "Haunted Hannah." "Lila, are you sure about this?" "Paranormal Pete." "Don't let it get to midnight." "Shadow Watcher, stay strong. You're not alone." As Lila approached the chapel, her equipment began to malfunction. The motion sensors beeped erratically, and her infrared camera picked up strange heat signatures, flickering shapes that disappeared as soon as she turned toward them. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared on the screen. "You're next." Her voice wavered as she addressed the viewers. This has to be a joke, right? Someone hacked my phone." The chat erupted. "Haunted Hannah. That's what Jason said." "Dead Man Walking. It's happening again." "Paranormal Pete. Get out of there." Lila entered the chapel, the stained glass window now a jagged hole, moonlight spilling across the floor. At the center of the room, the scorch marks Hayes had documented seemed deeper, as if burned fresh into the stone. She approached cautiously, her camera shaking. The ticking sound of the pocket watch began faintly, growing louder with every step. "No lila whisper." "That's not possible." The shadows along the walls twisted and writhed, converging in the center of the room. Lila's camera caught a glimpse of something forming, tall, skeletal, and wrapped in swirling darkness. The pocket watch glinted in the figure's hand. It spoke in a voice that was both Jason's and something far darker. "Welcome back," Lila screamed, dropping her camera. The feed cut to static, but faint audio remained, her panicked breaths, the ticking watch, and finally, her voice crying, "Help me." Scene shift. The chat watches in horror. Viewers could only watch as the screen stayed black, their comments frantic. "Haunted Hannah. Lila, are you okay?" "Paranormal Pete. We need to call someone." "Shadow Watcher. It's too late. She's gone." For a moment, the stream returned. The camera lay on its side, capturing the edge of the chapel floor. A hand, pale, bloodied, dragged into view, but it wasn't Lila's. The figure stepped into the frame, its face a shifting void. It held the pocket watch high, its hands spinning wildly backward. The chapel darkened, and the figure spoke directly into the camera. Midnight begins again. The stream cut off. The live stream never resumed. For hours, thousands of viewers refreshed the page, desperately hoping for a sign from Lila. But as the sun rose on New Year's Day, reality began to settle in. Like Jason before her, Lila had vanished. Graymoor Penitentiary was once again the focus of national attention. News crews swarmed the area, but the authorities refused to comment. The prison's gates were now reinforced with heavy chains, and armed guards patrolled the perimeter. Official statements claimed the measures were for public safety, but the whispers told another story. Days later, a file from Lila's camera was anonymously uploaded to the Midnight Watchers forum. It was timestamped 11:59 p.m., the exact moment her livestream ended. The video began in static, the screen flickering as if struggling to maintain a signal. Slowly, an image emerged, the chapel, bathed in dim light. Lila stood in the center, her face pale and her eyes wide with terror. She was staring at the figure, the entity Jason had encountered. Its shadowy form towered over her, the pocket watch swinging hypnotically in its hand. The figure's voice was low and resonant, echoing as if it came from the walls themselves. Each year, the clock strikes 12. Each year, the door opens, and each year, someone must stay behind. Lila's voice trembled. What are you talking about? You were warned, yet you came. The pocket watch stopped swinging, its hands frozen on midnight. The figure stepped closer, its form shifting, becoming more solid. Lila gasped as its features became visible. It was Jason, or rather a twisted version of him. His face was gaunt, his skin gray, his eyes black voids. Jason, she whispered. The figure tilted its head, smiling faintly. Jason is gone. He became what I was. Now, it's your turn. The shadows surged forward, engulfing Lila as she screamed. The video cut to black. The video resumed in a different location. The camera now captured a long, narrow hallway, its walls stretching endlessly into darkness. Jason's voice echoed faintly, repeating the same chilling phrase. Midnight begins again. Lila's voice joined his, faint and layered with static. Help me? I can't find the way out. The camera panned down, revealing the pocket watch lying on the floor, its hands spinning backward. A final message appeared on the screen, scrawled in flickering red letters. Leave while you still can. The video ended. 1 week after Lila's disappearance, the Urban Legends Live YouTube channel went live again, but with no announcement or explanation. The video showed an empty prison cell, its walls scratched with hundreds of tally marks. In the corner, a figure sat motionless, its face obscured. The sound of ticking echoed faintly. Slowly, the figure raised its head, revealing Jason's twisted face. He leaned forward, staring directly into the camera. His voice was calm, almost cheerful. Welcome to Graymoor. Who's next? The live stream abruptly ended, the channel going offline permanently. Over the following months, Graymoor's legend grew. Stories spread of people receiving mysterious texts at midnight, of shadowy figures appearing in reflections, and of whispers warning them to stay away from the prison. Some ignored the warnings. Most were never seen again. The Midnight Watchers Forum became a digital memorial, filled with theories, tributes, and haunting questions. Had Jason and Lila truly been claimed by Graymoor? Was there a way to stop the cycle? Or was the prison an eternal trap, feeding on those who dared to enter? One final post appeared on the forum, left by an anonymous user. Midnight isn't the end. It's the beginning. The clock always resets. And so, the legend of Graymoor lived on, a chilling reminder that some doors are best left unopened, and some stories never truly end.